According to New Jersey law enforcement, the Pagans Motorcycle Club has committed more violent acts in the last 18 months than in the prior 10 years. But is that true? In fact, is a lot of what's said about motorcycle clubs, especially the more famous so-called one percenters, or is it a way for the ATF and the FBI to get money? Now, there's certainly lots of wild incidents, and as of the last few years, something interesting has been going on, and it is true. The Pagans, under their temporarily former president, Keith Conan the Barbarian Richter, and I say temporarily not the president because he's serving 3 years for a gun charge, but he came up with something called the Blue Wave, which was a mandate for the motorcycle club to expand, and over the last few years they have expanded, doubling or more than doubling their membership, adding 15 new chapters in states far outside of their traditional turf, which is along the East Coast. But it's not illegal to, be in a motorcycle club, obviously. And just like any group of people, I mean it's because some get charged with crimes here and there, or some couple of them in a particular chapter might do something. Does that mean that these things, like they're presented often in the media, are just, massive, almost like mafia families? I mean, if you read the wrong stuff about motorcycle clubs, that's what it makes it sound like. Now, I was talking to Bernstein, and he was telling me how a DEA agent in Tennessee told him that the Outlaws, who have been traditionally at war with the Hells Angels, and there has been lots of murders and violence over the years, and they have made some sort of alliance to some degree with the Pagans, but that the Outlaws, so this Tennessee DEA agent said he has evidence that the Outlaws are aligning themselves with black street gangs, and that the Pagans are aligning themselves with the Latin Kings, which sounds like a coherent story like Grand Theft Auto. But what does that mean? Like, each of these chapters are different sets of people. Each guy's his own man. There was a meeting where the Outlaws said, hey, let's call up the gangster disciples and make an alliance? Like, this is kind of absurd when you say it like that. But law enforcement describing it like that certainly probably sounds good in front of Congress when they're trying to get more money for the ATF, or even if you're within the ATF or FBI and you're assigned to motorcycle groups and you're vying for, there's a certain budget. Say you're in the Eastern District of Michigan, where Detroit is. There's going to be a certain amount of agents assigned to, say, traditional organized crime. Then there's going to be agents assigned to black street gangs. There's going to be agents assigned to medical fraud. Depending on who makes the best case. I don't know how the FBI and ATF is exactly set up, but there must be some type of supervisors with people under them. Depending how you make your case for whatever you're assigned to, you might get more money and more agents, which doesn't mean you think you're lying, but just like lawyers in a criminal case take a lot of facts and weave them into compelling and coherent narratives, it doesn't mean those compelling and coherent narratives are true. So let's investigate what's going on with the Pagans and their Blue Wave. So, of course, the Hells Angels have traditionally been the big powerhouse, or at least according to the FBI, they're definitely the most famous. Now, maybe that's just because they were the first ones to appear in the pop culture, because Hunter S. Thompson, Johnny Depp's favorite author, who he seems to have styled his whole life after, since he made the Rum Diaries, or maybe even before Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas was written by him. He wrote a book about the Hells Angels in '66, which got him big on the map. And then they trademarked their name and insignia. And Sonny Barger, who just died the other day, did a excellent job of enforcing their trademark, and they definitely, different Hells Angels have been sent to prison for lots of wild things over the years, but just how much of a truly organized crime group are they? Probably it's a little overblown, but supposedly, I guess, the Pagans and the Outlaws are aligning in some places to go, or is it the Pagans versus the Outlaws? Boy, that's depending on which report you read. You'll, like, for example, in 2007, the head of the Mongols at the time, now the Mongols are the predominantly now Hispanic group out of Southern California originally, and they're around the country. Doc Cavazos, who was their president, and a lot of people think was a big informant. In 2007, he was on a wiretap making an alliance with the Pagans. But then there was some violence between the Mongols and the Pagans. And some people said they had an alliance, some people didn't. Well, that's probably because maybe some of them were allied with each other and some weren't. And what would their common interest have been? Well, anti-Hells Angels. It's definitely true that the Mongols and the Hells Angels were at each other's, and maybe still are, throat in Southern California, and that the Pagans and the Hells Angels had a lot of violence in Philadelphia, Pagans' traditional stronghold. I think they started in Maryland, but that's where their big stronghold has always been. But under Keith Conan the Barbarian Richter, they did this Blue Wave mandate. They've been spreading across the country. There's some Pagans being charged with the murder in Oklahoma of, I'm not sure what group, but maybe a local Oklahoma guy. I can't remember. I did a story on it. You can look it up. In Fall River, Massachusetts, where the Pagans tried to, they did open a chapter. There was a massive brawl between the Hells Angels, the Pagans, and probably some support clubs that happened at a bar. I don't know, like maybe 50 to 100 guys in the street. And it was like a Middle Ages melee, hammers, knives, bludgeoning things, and then not long after that, or just recently, the Pagans closed their Fall River chapter. I guess they didn't get enough manpower to hang in there. The Hells Angels pushed them back. Now, are these guys fighting for criminal turf, or are these just bikers, or just tough guys who like to bar brawl, and other than that are regular guys? Probably a little bit of both. Now, what is interesting, and this is for sure, the Pagans, in their beginning, you had to be white to join, but as of late, under Richter, Conan the Barbarian, the guy's in prison now for the gun charge, and he's going to be out in another 18 months. They elevated their first Hispanic guy to any sort of leadership position. I guess there probably had been a few Hispanics in it here and there. Puerto Rican, I assume, is Zorro Nieves. He's out of New Jersey. Richter made him the club's vice president, and Nieves is college educated, and he actually went to be, when the New Jersey Crime Commission was calling a couple years ago different motorcycle groups to question them about, like, what is the nature of your activity? Are you a criminal organization? He was chosen to represent and spoke for the Pagans. And remember, like, motorcycle clubs are not gangs, or, some people say they are, but they're officially legal clubs. So if the police want one of them to come and talk to a commission, saying no would imply, that they're a criminal group. So Nieves, the college-educated guy, I assume Puerto Rican because he's from New Jersey, but maybe not. He's the club vice president, and he spoke on their behalf. And in New Jersey, like I started this story with, there's been a lot of violence attributed to Pagans growing their presence there. And if, Philadelphia is right across the water from South Jersey, some of the highest crime parts of New Jersey, like Camden, and I think Elizabeth is over there. And so if the Pagans are expanding, New Jersey would be a likely place to go. There's Hell's Angels in New Jersey, and there was a shooting. Let's see. Oh, there was some Pagans were beaten with baseball bats in New Jersey back in 2020 or 2019, and then now 2 Pagans are being charged with attempted murder for shooting some Hell's Angels on a highway, the New Jersey Turnpike, in fact. So a lot of this biker action in the last years is going on highways. The Pagans murder, alleged murder out in Oklahoma, that was on the highway. And of course, I did a story the other day about 6 Vagos got shot, supposedly ambushed by the Hells Angels out near the Hoover Dam, and that was on the highway, or they chased each other around on the highway and then pulled off. I'm not sure. So I wonder if one of these days one of these big biker brawls, which is probably what the feds are worried about, could cost a lot of innocent bystanders their lives. There have been several big brawls in casinos, though I would imagine, I know, have I ever been anywhere? I've been around bikers, but like if I've been somewhere in public where a bunch of bikers came who I didn't know, I don't know. If you're somewhere and there's a lot of bikers, you might want to leave. Who knows what might be happening. So, yeah, hard to decipher the truth. It's probably a matter of different power dynamics within each group. A particular president may want to do something, but then you have strong chapter presidents that have different agendas. Of course, like I'll do an analog with, like, back in the day with Jimmy Hoffa and the Teamsters. People would say Jimmy Hoffa was corrupt because there were, in some of the Teamsters locals, like the guy that probably killed him and out in New Jersey, that some of the heads of the Teamsters locals were active mafioso. And but Jimmy Hoffa didn't appoint them. They're elected by the Teamsters of that local. So Hoffa would say, I'm a guy that has to manage a big organization, which has some corruption in some places, but I have to deal with it, and it's the law enforcement's job to come in and root it out. And I would imagine that's what bikers would tell you. So clearly there's some members of those groups that get involved in organized criminal stuff, but clearly there's a lot that don't. So why such a fear-mongering? It's really ticked up recently. Now those freeway shootouts are pretty frightening, but I don't know. But the Pagans definitely under Zorro Nieves have brought in former Latin kings, just like in LA, Mongols have Serranos joining. I don't know if that means you stop being a Serrano or you stop being a Latin king. I guess it does. I know in LA, a lot of black gang members kind of age out, and then they still want the camaraderie of hanging out, and they go into biker clubs, which aren't really accused of being involved in criminal activity as groups, though I'm sure individuals do stuff. But amongst white criminals, I guess that's like the last fearful thing that law enforcement can paint as an organized group. Mobs still exist, but they're smart enough to not much violence these days, though it does break out here and there. A lot of white-collar crimes, the gambling, the loan sharking, things that aren't that exciting, things that don't get a big budget for you if you're law enforcement. But bikers having shootouts on the highway definitely does. And I'm working on a story about, I'm sure everybody's at least vaguely familiar with the big infamous Waco, Texas, hundreds and hundreds of bikers fighting at a Twin Peaks restaurant parking lot. That was about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 7 years ago. and they arrested like hundreds of people and indicted all kind of people, and all the charges have been dropped. Even though I think there were 11 people killed that day, correct me if I'm wrong, the prosecution and the feds did such a bad job of investigating, of just blanketly charging groups of people and calling them criminal organizations when that's, definitely not what they are in their entirety. So is the same thing being done in the case of the Pagans? I don't know. I will leave you with, boy, too bad this was before YouTube. Well, YouTube existed, but it hadn't gotten popular. I had no idea I'd have a use for all this kind of footage, but I have a video, if you search it, Frank the Bomberito on my channel, and it's like a trailer me and Bernstein made. It's fake. I mean, we were trying to get this reality show, but Frank the Bomberito is not fake. He was, at the time, it was pretty weird. He was accepted to be a made member, perhaps a capo in the Detroit Mafia family, who, due to some internal things and his age, he sort of didn't care anymore, and he was like, oh, you can follow me around, fuck it, let's get a reality show. His daughter had just suffered the tragedy of her boyfriend, who was like a delivery driver for Jimmy John's, had been randomly carjacked and killed by these two young guys that were said to be members of the infamous Detroit 7 Mile Bloods. And then he told us that one of them got thrown off the top tier in the prison. Frank the Bomb has been dead for a few years now, but so has another guy, Harry Taco Bowman, former international president of the Outlaws, the only real almost rival to the Hells Angels in the United States and globally. Harry Taco Bowman, I think, reached like number 3 on the FBI's most wanted list, behind maybe Bin Laden and Whitey Bulger. And when he was wanted and hiding out, because he was headquartered in Detroit, he was living at Frank the Bomb's old house on East 6 Mile in Detroit. I was over there. They're both dead now, but Frank the Bomb was the conduit for at least some bikers to act as muscles sometimes, and there's different stories about that you can read about. I don't want to say wrong information, but Detroit bikers have been implicated in different RICOs as acting sometimes as muscle for Detroit organized crime figures. And Frank the Bomb definitely was good friends with Harry Taco Bowman, and he hit him out. So the motorcycle clubs are interesting. I mean, there's definitely some serious guys in some of them, and some serious things happen. But they're legal entities that exist out in the open, and it's not illegal to ride a motorcycle or to have a patch on your back. But you probably don't want to get caught wearing one if you're not really a member, so it's complicated. Bikers outprofit American dope.